The package arrived on our 5th wedding anniversary. No return address, just my name in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside, nestled in cream-colored tissue paper, lay a pair of silver cufflinks with the initials JM engraved in elegant script. They weren't meant for my husband. His initials are NP. My name is Alara, and this is how I discovered my marriage was built on lies. I stood in our kitchen, morning sunlight streaming through the windows, turning the silver links into tiny mirrors in my palm. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and my heartbeat in my ears. Nolan had left early for work, kissing me goodbye with his usual, "Love you, beautiful." My phone buzzed. A text from him. "Dinner reservations at 7. Wear that blue dress I love." I set the cufflinks on our marble countertop, watching them catch the light. 5 years of marriage, and I'd never seen them before. 5 years of trust, dissolving like sugar in hot coffee. "Everything okay?" Our housekeeper, Maria, appeared in the doorway. "You look pale." I closed my fist around the cufflinks. "Just tired. Long night." She nodded, but her eyes lingered on my hand. "Mr. Pierce left his dry cleaning list. Want me to take care of it?" "I'll handle it today," I said, forcing a smile. "I need to run some errands anyway." After Maria left, I opened my hand again. The initials stared back at me, a silent accusation. My mind raced through possibilities. A gift meant for someone else, delivered to the wrong address? A mistake at the jeweler's? But deep down, I knew better. The same instinct that had been whispering doubts for months was now screaming. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I'd saved months ago, but never called. Detective Theo Ramirez came highly recommended for his discretion. The cufflinks clinked as I dropped them into my purse. Tonight, I'd wear that blue dress Nolan loves so much. I'd smile and toast to 5 years of marriage. But tomorrow? Tomorrow, I'd start discovering exactly who JM was and why someone wanted me to know about them. The Pierce family mansion always felt like a museum, beautiful, cold, and full of things I wasn't supposed to touch. I pulled up to the circular driveway, the cufflinks heavy in my coat pocket, dreading the weekly Sunday brunch that Vivian insisted upon. "Darling, you're late," Vivian called from the doorway, her silver hair perfectly styled. "Nolan's been here for an hour already." Of course he had. My husband always managed to arrive early for his mother's summons, even though he couldn't make it to dinner with me 3 nights this week. I found them in the conservatory. Nolan hunched over paperwork while Vivian arranged flowers. The morning light caught his wedding ring as he gestured with his hands, explaining something to his mother. "The Jensen merger is almost final," he said, not looking up. "We just need to handle a few delicate matters." Vivian's scissors snipped through a rose stem. "And you're certain you've considered all the angles?" "Everything's under control, Mother." I cleared my throat. They both turned, startled, as if I'd interrupted a private conversation rather than walked into a family brunch. "Alara," Nolan stood, kissing my cheek. "Sorry, work never stops." "Apparently not," I said, touching the spot where his lips had barely grazed my skin. "Even on Sundays." Vivian set down her scissors. "Well, now that we're all here, I have wonderful news. The country club is hosting their annual charity gala next month, and I've volunteered our family to chair the event." "Our family?" I asked. "Of course, dear. Unless you're too busy with your, what do you call it? Social media consulting?" "Marketing strategy," I corrected, feeling the familiar sting of her dismissal. "And I have client commitments." "Nolan will need you there," Vivian interrupted. "Appearances matter, especially with the merger so close." I watched my husband's face, waiting for him to defend me, to say anything. Instead, he smiled apologetically and squeezed my hand. "It would mean a lot to me," he said softly. The cufflinks burned in my pocket like a secret trying to escape. I wanted to pull them out, to demand answers, but Vivian was already calling for brunch to be served. As we moved to the dining room, I caught a glimpse of Nolan checking his phone, smiling at a message. The same smile he used to reserve for me. Detective Ramirez's office smelled like coffee and old paper. He spread photos across his desk while I sat perfectly still, my hands clasped so tight my knuckles went white. "These were taken over the past week," he said, his voice gentle. "I should warn you, Mrs. Pierce." "Show me." The first photo showed Nolan leaving an upscale restaurant, his hand on someone's back. The second caught him laughing, head thrown back, more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. The third, I pushed back from the desk, my chair scraping against the floor. The Jensen merger. "I'm sorry," that's what he called it, at his mother's house. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "He's been working late on the Jensen merger." Ramirez slid another envelope across the desk. "There's more. Financial records, hotel receipts. And," he hesitated, "Mrs. Pierce, there's something else you should know. Your mother-in-law has been making regular payments to a divorce attorney for the past month." Of course she had. Vivian Pierce never left anything to chance. My phone buzzed, a text from Nolan. "Working late again. Don't wait up. Mrs. Pierce." Ramirez leaned forward. "Are you all right?" I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "How much do I owe you?" "There's one more thing." He pulled out a final photo. This was taken yesterday at the country club. The image showed Nolan and Vivian at an outdoor table, heads close together. Between them lay a familiar velvet box, the one that had held the mysterious cufflinks. "They know," I whispered. "They know I received them. Want me to keep digging?" I thought about Vivian's charity gala, about Nolan's careful smiles, about all the late nights and missed dinners, about how they'd planned it all, probably laughing at my ignorance. "No," I said, gathering the photos. "I think I know exactly what I need to do next." As I left, Ramirez called after me. "Mrs. Pierce? Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to others, it's what you do for yourself." I touched the cufflinks in my pocket, thinking about Vivian's upcoming birthday dinner. "Don't worry, detective. I plan to do both." "You need to see this," Sadie said, sliding her phone across the coffee shop table. Her hands shook slightly, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. The social media post showed Vivian at the country club, announcing her upcoming birthday celebration. But it wasn't the carefully worded announcement that caught my attention. It was the comment below from someone named Julia Michaels.
GM.
"That's not all," Sadie continued, her voice low. "Julia's been liking every post Nolan's made for the past year. She's a junior partner at his firm." The cafe suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. I watched a barista making elaborate designs in foam while my world tilted sideways. "Have you known?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "I suspected something last month at the firm's holiday party. The way they avoided each other was just too careful." Sadie reached for my hand. I didn't want to say anything without proof. My phone buzzed, another text from Nolan. "Mother wants to discuss seating arrangements for her birthday dinner. Join us for lunch." "You're not going," Sadie said, reading my expression. "Actually, I am." I stood up, gathering my things. "But first, I need to make a few calls." "That prenup Vivian insisted on? It has an infidelity clause." "Alara. Did you know Vivian's birthday dinner is being held at Le Blanc?" I smiled, thinking of the exclusive restaurant's strict payment policies. They require full payment 48 hours in advance. "What are you planning?" I thought about the detective's photos, the cufflinks, Julia's social media trail, about Vivian's smug smile and Nolan's careful eyes. "I'm planning to give them exactly what they want, the perfect family celebration." I pulled out my credit card. "And then I'm going to show them exactly who they've been underestimating." Sadie grabbed my arm. "Just be careful. Revenge can burn both ways." "I'm not looking for revenge," I said, thinking of Detective Ramirez's words. "I'm looking for justice. And maybe, finally, my freedom." As I left, I sent a quick text to Nolan. "Can't wait for lunch. I have some wonderful ideas for the seating arrangement." The letter fell from Nolan's jacket pocket while I was gathering clothes for dry cleaning. A cream-colored envelope, expensive stationery, addressed simply to J. My hands trembled as I unfolded it, standing in our walk-in closet surrounded by his perfectly pressed suits. "My dearest Jay," it began. After Vivian's birthday, everything changes. I promise. The door downstairs clicked open. Alara? Nolan's voice echoed through the house. Are you home? I shoved the letter into my pocket, my heart hammering. In the closet. I called back, grabbing random clothes off hangers. Just gathering dry cleaning. His footsteps on the stairs, each one bringing him closer. Actually, he appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. I need that blue suit for tomorrow. Board meeting. I handed him the suit, praying he couldn't hear my pulse racing. The one you wore to the country club last week? His fingers paused on the tie. Just for a moment. Yes, that's the one. With Julia Michaels? The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Then he smiled, that practiced, perfect smile that used to make me feel special. The junior partner? She was there for the merger discussion, yes. He hung up the suit carefully. Why do you ask? I thought about the detective's photos, the letter burning in my pocket, the cufflinks hidden in my desk. About Vivian's birthday dinner tomorrow night at LeBlanc, where I'd already arranged everything, including the seating chart that would put Julia Michaels directly across from me. Just curious, I said, matching his smile. Actually, I've been meaning to ask, what time should I arrive tomorrow? For Vivian's dinner? 7 sharp, he said, already checking his phone. Mother insists everyone be punctual. Of course she does. I touched his arm gently. It's going to be quite a memorable evening. He kissed my forehead absently and left, never noticing how my hand shook or how I'd gripped the closet door to stay standing. In my pocket, the letter crinkled. After Vivian's birthday, everything changes. Yes, I thought. It certainly would. LeBlanc's private dining room sparkled with candlelight and crystal. I watched Julia Michaels take her assigned seat across from me, her perfectly manicured hands arranging her napkin. She wore pearl earrings that matched her cream-colored dress. No cufflinks in sight. Alara, darling. Vivian touched my shoulder, her diamond bracelet catching the light. The wine selection is divine. You've outdone yourself. I smiled, thinking of the payment authorization I'd already canceled. Nothing but the best for your birthday, Mother. Nolan sat between us, his tie slightly crooked. He'd been distracted all evening, his eyes flickering between his phone and Julia. The same way they used to flicker to me back when I was his secret. Before we begin, Vivian raised her glass. Nolan has an announcement. My husband stood, straightening his tie. These past few months have brought some changes. And tonight, I want to share something important. I felt the weight of Detective Ramirez's photos in my clutch, of the letter in my pocket, of 5 years of lies pressing against my chest. Alara and I, he paused, glancing at Julia, then his mother. We've decided to separate. The room went silent. I watched Julia's face flush, her fingers tightening around her wine glass. It's been a difficult decision, Nolan continued, but sometimes marriages just don't. Show them the cufflinks, I said quietly. He froze. What? I reached into my clutch, placed the silver cufflinks on the white tablecloth. The ones with JM engraved on them. The ones someone wanted me to find. Julia's wine glass slipped, red spreading across white linen like blood. Alara. Vivian's voice turned sharp. This is hardly the time. Actually, I stood, pulling out the photos, the letter, spreading them across the table like cards in a losing hand. It's exactly the time. Right before everything changes. Isn't that what you wrote, Nolan? But as I looked at their faces, Nolan's shock, Julia's tears, Vivian's calculated calm, I realized I'd miscalculated. They weren't ashamed. They were relieved. Oh, darling, Vivian smiled, reaching for her phone. Did you really think we didn't plan for this? The maitre d' appeared at her shoulder. Madam, there seems to be an issue with a payment authorization. Yes, Vivian's smile widened. I believe there is. Actually, I smiled, pulling out my phone. I've already handled the payment. I turned to the maitre d'. Check your email. The transfer just cleared from my personal account. Vivian's triumphant expression faltered. You see, I continued, while you were all busy planning my humiliation, I was reading the prenuptial agreement. specifically the infidelity clause. I locked eyes with Julia, the one that transfers all marital assets to the wronged party. Nolan's face drained of color. That clause was meant to protect me from gold diggers like me? I laughed. Your mother made that very clear when she insisted on it. But tell me, Nolan, whose signature is on those hotel receipts? Whose credit card paid for Julia's gifts? You can't prove, Vivian started. Actually, I can. I nodded to the restaurant entrance, where Detective Ramirez appeared, folder in hand. Everything's documented. Every meeting, every gift, every lie. Julia stood abruptly. I should go. Sit down, I said quietly. You'll want to hear this part. I pulled out one final document. Remember when you helped Nolan revise his will last month, Julia? As his company's legal counsel? She sank back into her chair. That's conflict of interest, I continued. The State Bar Association tends to frown on lawyers sleeping with their clients, especially when inheritance is involved. The silence was deafening. Vivian's perfectly manicured nails drummed against the table. What do you want? Nolan finally asked. Nothing. I stood, gathering my things. I already have everything. The house, the accounts, even your precious family company shares. The prenup was very thorough, Mother. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Julia? The cufflinks were a nice touch. Next time you want to warn someone about their cheating husband, try being less dramatic. I never sent. Julia's eyes widened, turning to Vivian. I watched understanding dawn on Nolan's face as he looked at his mother. You send the cufflinks? But I didn't stay to hear Vivian's response. I'd already won. As I walked out of LeBlanc, Detective Ramirez fell into step beside me. Need a ride? He asked. No. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I think I'll walk. It's a beautiful night for new beginnings. 1 week after the dinner at LeBlanc, I found Vivian sitting alone on my front porch. She looked smaller somehow, without her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup. The cufflinks belong to my husband, she said as I approached. James Mitchell. He left me for his secretary 30 years ago. I sat beside her, keeping distance between us. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves. You wanted me to find them, I said. Not a question. I wanted to save my son. She laughed bitterly. Instead, I turned him into his father. Inside the house, moving boxes lined the halls. My new life waited in a downtown apartment, far from the Pierce family legacy of secrets and control. You know what's strange? I stood, fishing the cufflinks from my pocket. I had Detective Ramirez trace these. They're not originals, they're replicas, made 6 months ago. Vivian's hands trembled as she took them. What? Someone wanted you to remember that pain, to relive it, just like you wanted me to discover Nolan's affair. I watched understanding dawn in her eyes. Julia ordered them. She found out about your past and used it against you, just like you tried to use me against Nolan. She played us all, Vivian whispered. No, I corrected gently. We played ourselves. The moving truck pulled up, and Sadie emerged from inside the house carrying another box. Last one, she called. I turned back to Vivian. The company's shares. I'm transferring them to a trust. For Nolan's future children. I paused. But the board seat is mine. I earned that. She nodded, clutching the cufflinks. And the house. Sell it. Start over. Break the cycle. As I walked toward the truck, Vivian called after me. How did you do it? Move forward without letting the betrayal consume you. I thought about Detective Ramirez's words that first day, about revenge and justice and choosing yourself. I realized something, I said. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And I'm finally indifferent to the Pierce family drama. The cufflinks glinted in Vivian's hand as I drove away, leaving behind 5 years of memories and one final lesson. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well.